tuning into another episode of Take 10 on Tuesday with the Tennessee Tribune. I'm Jason Lutz. Now this week we are happy to be celebrating the upcoming federal holiday for Martin Luther King Jr. As communities across the nation gear up to celebrate different events, we here in Nashville have our own events that will be going on. Today I have one of the coordinator of many events in the city, Attorney Kelvin Jones. Hello, sir.
Hello, Jason.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Now, we want our audience to be aware of all the great things we have going on coming up towards Monday to celebrate this great day. So first I would like to, if you can just give us an idea of what you have planned and what organization are you working with?
Okay. Well, I have the honor of serving as the chair of the Interdenominational Ministers Fellowship, MLK March and Convocation Planning Committee. The IMF, as the Interdenominational Ministers Fellowship is affectionately referred. For many years in Nashville, it is a group of pastors, area pastors, who have been meeting for probably 50 years now.
Wow.
And for 30 of those years, or a little bit more than 30 years now, the pastors, even before there was a federal holiday honoring Dr. King, those pastors led the efforts to have marches on a day in January where we would celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. King.
Oh, wow.
So the IMF, this group of pastors, has a committee, and that committee each year leads the citywide, or really the region-wide effort to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. King. And now that it is a federal holiday, we do it every third Monday in January every year. So there's a march, there is a convocation program, but then also during the weekend we'll also have activities planned. And ours are just, we have sort of the signature events for the city, but there are other organizations and institutions in Nashville that also honor Dr. King's life and legacy around the same time, beginning really this weekend through the end of next week.
Okay. So the IMF was holding events in Nashville before this became a holiday.
That's correct. That's correct.
Wow, that's amazing.
Well, and I remember being in high school, and for several years when President Reagan was in office, there was movement amongst the folks in Congress to have a holiday named in honor of Dr. King. And there were folks who didn't want to do it. And so instead of waiting around for there to be a federal holiday, cities throughout the country began having ceremonial marches and programs. And then subsequently, after the legislation was passed under President Reagan, we had a national holiday. So it wasn't always a day off.
Okay, so for our younger viewers, the Martin Luther King Day that we celebrate now, it actually sounds like it was like a grassroots movement throughout the nation.
There was.
Wow, that's amazing.
And there were issues with Arizona and the state of Arizona not wanting to participate, and so there've always been.
I remember that.
The struggle has continued.
It does continue.
Yes.
Now, just to backtrack, now the IMF, is that a Nashville local organization, or is that something that there's chapters throughout the nation, or is that something you have here?
It's a local organization of ministers. Again, it's the Interdenominational Ministers Fellowship, primarily ministers of color, but there have also been members of the clergy who were from the broader community who have affiliated and participated in the work of the Interdenominational Ministers Fellowship. And now this fellowship has expanded to include community members as well.
Wow.
So there are, for example, the Urban League is involved. The NAACP has individuals or officers who are members. And any local organization that needs to have a place to voice community concerns or to share community activities comes to the IMF. The IMF meets every Wednesday here in town locally.
Oh, wow.
And does it, again, year-round. And again, it is a forum for ministers, people of clergy, community activists, to share ideas and to mobilize.
Oh, that's great. So celebrating MLK Day is just one of the many things that this organization does.
That's correct.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Now, what is your position within the organization?
Well, I've been the chairperson of this MLK March and Convocation.
The chairperson of this actual
of the March and Convocation, right? And I've been doing that chair for probably 6 or 7 years, but I've been either chair or vice chair probably for the last 10 years.
Wow, that's great. Now, so let's kind of break down what we have going on. So let's start with Saturday. You said there's an event Saturday morning.
Yes, Saturday morning at the downtown library.
Okay.
We will have a youth forum in partnership with the Metro Human Relations Commission. The idea being that just before the holiday, we want to bring youth in to talk about diversity in the schools, to talk about issues of race and religion, inclusion, to talk about issues that are relevant for those young people who seek to be activists.
Yes.
We want to empower them to act on behalf of their colleagues, but at the same time, we want to provide them with forums to discuss issues that are relative to them today.
Now, when we say youth, what age are we targeting here? Are we teens to young 20s?
These will primarily be high school students.
High school?
We'll have some college students to participate as well, but primarily high school students.
Okay. How did you get the word out to the high schools?
Well, again, we've worked through the Metro Human Relations Commission, which is a department of metropolitan government. They've worked closely with the schools and other agencies, whether they be the agencies such as the Oasis Center. There is a number of youth programs in Nashville that the Metro Human Relations Commission has a relationship with. So we've gotten some students from Metro schools, they may be from student government, and then from youth agencies here in town. So they'll bring together this sort of broad cross-section of youth to participate in this discussion and forum on Saturday.
That's Saturday at the downtown library. What were the times again?
From 9 o'clock until 11 o'clock a.m. there will be a panel discussion, but there are going to be activities for those same youth throughout the day.
Oh, great. That sounds great.
But this particular panel will focus on Dr. King, his contributions, what his vision was, and how these young people have embraced that vision and how they see it being relative today in everything that they do. And so there'll be an opportunity for them to dialogue. We'll also have on hand individuals who were involved in the civil rights movement, whether it be sit-ins or the Freedom Riders, who'll be there as a resource to talk about coordination of efforts, community engagement. And so, but again, it's not their job to plan a course of action for the young folks. We want to empower the young people to do that on their own. And so,
wow, that's great. That sounds like a great program. And so, what do we have on Monday?
Well, Monday, a full day. The theme for this year's March and Convocation is passing the torch, accepting the charge. Passing the torch, accepting the charge. For several years, the planning committee has tried to develop a convocation program that meets the needs of those in the more senior in our community, but then also the young folks, because we realize that while young people may represent 30 or 40% of our population, they represent 100% of our future. And so the concept of passing the torch, accepting the charge, what we want to do is empower our young people to let them know that they can control their own destiny, that they shouldn't just look to Dr. King's and the folks of Dr. King's generation, but they've got to look within themselves to take on the charge.
Yes.
And so this year's program, we are going to have 2 speakers. Typically we have a keynote speaker, but in this year's convocation we'll have 2. One is Dr. Gloria McKissick, who is a professor. Do you know Dr. McKissick?
Yes, very well. We've interviewed her twice, and she played a big part in the civil rights movement in Nashville.
She did. She was a sit-in participant.
Yes.
She documented the work of the Freedom Riders, and we thought that she would be an appropriate person to speak on the portion of the program which is passing the torch, empowering the younger generation. And then we will have Brandon Smithson, who is a youth pastor at Greater Grace Church here in Nashville.
Okay.
He will speak on the accepting the charge portion. So that's the convocation. I've gone a little bit ahead of myself, but let me back up. The day will begin at 8:30 at Jefferson Street Baptist Church, where we will have a job fair. Because you can never, given the high unemployment, particularly amongst people of color, people need jobs.
Yes.
And so, MLK Day is a day on, not a day off. And so we want everyone to come out. And if you need a job, we will have employers with jobs ready to interview and to take those next steps toward hiring that morning.
That's great.
So 8:30 until 10:30, there at Jefferson Street Baptist Church in the multi-purpose room. We've got JUMP, which is Jefferson Street United Methodist, Jefferson Street United Merchants Partnership, in partnership with the Urban League. So Sharon Hurd and Patricia Stokes have put together a job fair, and hopefully folks can interview and get some jobs there on Saturday morning. That's at 8:30. Then at 9:45 at Jefferson Street Baptist Church, we will have a press conference led by our partners in organized labor. As you know, Dr. King was a staunch advocate for employee rights and in protecting the employee. And so we've asked our partners to talk about the importance of Dr. King's dream and how it's relative today. So labor will have a press conference for about 10 or 15 minutes with members of the clergy to talk about Dr. King and the relevance of his message and what we can do now in honoring him. That'll be at about 9:45. 10 o'clock, people are already gathering there at Jefferson Street Baptist Church at the intersection of 28th and Jefferson. And at 10 o'clock, we will get ready to start the march. 10:15, we're marching.
That's it.
Marching
10:15.
10:15. But get there, streets are going to be blocked off for a significant part of the morning. So we're asking everyone to arrive at Jefferson Street Baptist Church by no later than 9:30.
9:30, okay.
Park in the area, walk to the church, congregate there. We'll have refreshments. There will be music. There will be the Dr. King speeches will be played. So there'll be plenty to engage you there at Jefferson Street Baptist Church. 10:15, we are marching to the TSU Gentry Complex. Now, for those who elect not to march, who are unable to march or just don't want to march, we will have a pre-convocation musical program at the TSU Gentry Complex. Damon King has coordinated that effort for us, and Connie Donnell from 92Q, they've put together a spectacular lineup of young people who will perform not just during the pre-convocation, which will take place between 10:30 and 11, but during our convocation program. So if you don't want to march, arrive at the TSU Gentry Complex by 10:15. The pre-convocation musical will begin promptly at 10:30 and will last until 11. Going back to the church for those who decide to march from the intersection of 28th and Jefferson Street. We will march. The marchers will arrive at the Gentry Center somewhere around 10:30 or 10:40, and we'll be able to enjoy the pre-convocation musicals, relax for a bit, because we will begin the convocation promptly at 11 o'clock a.m. And we have a phenomenal lineup where, and again, our focus this year is passing the torch. Well, that's a theme, passing the torch, accepting the charge. But we want to highlight our young people, and they will make their tribute to Dr. King. And they'll do this through spoken word, through song and dance. We've got a mime troupe. We've got dancers. We have young people who are going to be reciting an essay. Just a really talented lineup. And then we will have the formal pass of the torch, accepting of the charge, which will be completed or conducted by Dr. McKissick and Brandon Smithson.
Oh, wow.
So it's really, I mean, the talent.
Great.
You know, in the past, we've had a lot of this talent at Jefferson Street Baptist Church, the young people, but we want to provide them with a larger stage. And so what typically took place at Jefferson Street in the morning of the 20th, we've moved it incorporated it into the convocation program. We've got a young lady, African-American female, who has written a song called King for a Day. It is her tribute to Dr. King, and that will be one of the first pieces that the audience will hear before we begin the convocation program.
Okay.
So,
sounds great.
I mean, it's a great lineup. It's always an entertaining program, but we want to show the nation. Again, this is one of the largest MLK observances in the country.
Oh, great!
Our march and our convocation.
Great.
Again, it's one of the largest. We're well known for the work that we do here, and I think that this year's program, I mean, it's stellar.
It sounds like a great way to celebrate and honor that day. I love the theme and bringing it back to the youth. That's great. It sounds exciting.
Well, we've got to do that.
Yes.
And I'll say that because there's been some criticism of the older generation that maybe the torch was held on to for too long, and that we didn't pass on the responsibility to our younger generation, and we just did too much for them. And so symbolically, that it needs to occur. It'll happen there, but we really need to figure out how to give more opportunities to our young people to control their own destiny. So
I love it. I love the idea of the job fair in the morning. I mean, the empowering us economically is important, and then actually honoring the day. It sounds amazing. Now, just to wrap it up, is there anywhere online that they could find this breakdown of events?
Sure. We have a website, which is www.mlkdaynashville.com. That's www.mlkdaynashville.com, and they can contact us at our main phone line, which is area code 615-465-8000, 615-465-8000, or contact us by way of our website. If you have questions, you can email them to us through a link provided on the website.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, I really appreciate you taking out the time today, and we're definitely going to do our part to continue to spread the word, because both Saturday and Monday sound like very important days.
Well, we thank the Tribune for all that it's done in this community for so many years.
Thank you.
Jason, we appreciate you, and obviously Miss Perry is a jewel.
Yes,
she and Dr. Perry, and, he meant a great deal. She means a great deal. The Tribune, the role that it plays in being really the mouthpiece for this community. We just can't thank you all enough for all that you've done and continue to do to make Nashville the very best city that it can be.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And once again, you've been tuning into Take 10 on Tuesday with the Tennessee Tribune. See you next time.